Do you feel like your drawing's in a rut? It's just the same old, and the same old is actually frustrating. That you're still feeling you're at the start of your drawing journey and you're wanting to develop your drawing, your style, your technique, and yet everything seems to just come out with a sameness that's not very satisfying. You'd love to inject more movement, more life into your marks, perhaps more accuracy in what you draw, perhaps more variation in how you put things together, and yet everything tends to end up looking the same. Well, if we don't want things to look the same, we need to shake them up. Here are 3 ways, I think the 3 easiest ways, you can quickly and instantly, as well as easily, shake things up. And nothing's stopping you from starting to do this in your very next drawing. No preparation, no learning, no equipment is needed. And I'm going to put the one that I think potentially has the most impact of really stirring things up. Perhaps even more than you're comfortable with at first. I'm going to put that one last because probably my recommendation is you try the first 2 first to get you used to this, if you like, disruption to the pattern, the habits you've fallen into in your drawing. That it might be a bit overwhelming all at once. But I think the first 2, if you give each of those a go for a bit, will get you used to feeling less in control, but also more excited about the experimenting that these 3 things will provoke. One of the reasons we can find ourselves in this situation is because we tend to be creatures of habit. We fall into routines very easily because routines make our life easier, more straightforward, don't require as much ongoing thinking, and therefore saves brain space and energy for other things. The problem is, if we lock into a routine, a way of almost automatically thinking and drawing, before we've really learned enough to get to a place where we're producing the sorts of drawings we want to produce, then this routine mindset will stop us developing, improving our drawing style the way we want. And then it becomes a problem. How can I shake that up? The first thing we can easily and instantly change is the time we spend drawing. Most of us will tend to fall into a very similar time length when we draw. And the truth is, however we draw, the length of time we spend drawing will help to mold, if not determine, how we draw. Because what we can do will depend on the time we have doing it. The sort of marks we can make, the amount of thinking we do or won't do is often limited to the time that we have to spend on the whole drawing session. And we would tend to choose similar sorts of subjects and expect to be spending the same amount of time on them. And so our drawings will end up having a certain rhythm that falls in line with what we can do in that time. If you like, the time helps to produce the drum beat that we draw to. And if we want to shake things up in our drawing quickly, a really good way of doing that is to change the drum beat, to have a faster drum beat because we're giving ourselves less time to draw, or a slower drum beat because we're giving ourselves more time to draw. Another thing is that simply being aware of the time and trying to keep pace as much with the time that we have remaining as anything else we're doing will also give us a different focus to what we may have with our more usual drawing routine. When we don't have to think about the time, well, we don't have to think about the time. And that sometimes gives us time to think of unhelpful things in unhelpful ways. And suddenly having a time pressure, particularly if we go faster, can actually not give us the opportunity to start slowing down because we're feeling nervous or we're afraid of wrecking our drawing, to give in to perfectionism, or simply to get bored and start to take less care with the latter part of our drawing session. Going faster, pushing ourselves to go faster, can also help introduce a liveliness into our mark making, introducing more energy in the way our drawings look. as we fuss less because we don't have time with every mark, we can also often get a greater range of marks that create more interest, more variety in what we do, and therefore the number of effects or the type of effects we can create with these marks. Going slower though, giving ourselves longer time to draw and pacing consciously so we use that longer time can help us slow down and do more careful observation, which may actually be a really strong weakness in our normal routine. We can spend more time thinking about marks before we put them on the paper. We could try and visualize things more rather than perhaps rushing into them. Perhaps as we draw, we'll spend more time considering what we've drawn and critique our drawing on the way, and perhaps adapt our initial expectations for a better final result. Or because we feel less rushed because we're breathing deeply, more slowly, and giving ourselves more time and deliberately choosing to pace ourselves so that we take that extra time. Now, of course, I'm not saying that taking more time or less time, that either one of those is going to be better, or in itself, it's inherently better than the time you take at the moment. The point is that we make a big change to something that's a fundamental driver to how we think and how we put marks on the paper, and therefore how our drawings look at the end. Changing the time faster or slower and sticking to that is a great way to really shake up how we draw. And if you're finding this helpful, please hit the like button or the hype button for me. Really appreciate that. The second thing we can do to easily and quickly shake up how we draw is to change the size of our drawing. Again, being creatures of habit, because we've tended to draw for the same length of time, we've tended to draw the same sorts of things. We also tend to get the same sheet of paper and to start to plan for our finished drawing to be the same size to fit those other parameters. And again, what we start to do is we start to mold the way we draw to drawing those sorts of drawings in that sort of time at that size. And again, this starts to introduce limiting factors to our drawing development. And this particularly shows itself when we're more at the beginner stage, when we really should be exploring and experimenting and discovering things and pushing ourselves and not falling into a routine. Routines are great when we're sure that this is exactly where we want to be. But if I'm unhappy with the way my drawings look, then this is not where I want to be, so it's helpful to change things. So maybe I draw copy paper size. Why not try drawing half copy paper size or a quarter copy paper size? I probably wouldn't, if we're a beginner, recommend going to double copy paper size, but why not give it a go if that's your natural inclination? While it probably will be harder, if that's really what you want to do, then go for it and try and find what you need to find to do it well. Because it's not just the time I have to put the marks on the paper, but it's how much paper I have to put marks on. If I'm drawing to a very small size, then my marks are all going to be smaller and really don't require much movement. If I'm drawing on a larger sheet of paper, I'm going to be having to draw from my shoulder a whole lot more than my fingertips. And drawing using more of our arm is usually a very good way of getting more confident and more energy-filled lines and marks. The speed that we feel subconsciously pressured to go is also related to what we have to do in the time we think we have. So a larger sheet of paper might cause us to go faster than we're able to do well. Equally, a size paper too small may encourage us just to go too slowly, get very bogged down and really start to make heavy, overworked, ponderous marks. So changing the size of our paper, but keeping everything else the same, is a great way to push ourselves to do things differently. There's no point doubling the size of our paper and doubling the time we have to do it. That's probably just going to create a larger version in some ways of the same. We want to really push ourselves almost to feeling uncomfortable by making a big change quickly. This third way of shaking up how our drawings look and how we draw them easily and quickly is one that I'm not sure I've mentioned on a video before, but that's to change the size of our reference photo. Just as we tend to draw things the same size and in the same amount of time, we probably, if we print off a hard copy, end up having the same size hard copy. Or if I'm drawing from a photo that's on a laptop or an iPad, I'm probably looking at the same size photo reference when I draw. Now, this is really important because what I can see certainly impacts what I draw, what I try and draw, and how I might try and draw it. And I can take the same scene. I mean, you look at this scene over here to my right on the screen, and imagine if that was in a very small, say 5 by 5 centimeter print versus a 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter print. Like, the smaller one is going to condense all of that detail and make it look very different in terms of what we're trying to draw to the 30 by 30 centimeter one, where we're going to see so much detail and individual leaves and far more individual twigs and things and bits of bark. And the question will be, how am I going to draw that? Will I try and draw blades of grass and leaves individually, or some of them, or none of them? Whereas using the very, very, very small reference image, I'm not going to see them, and I'm not going to even be tempted to draw them that way. The values are going to look different. They're going to feel more condensed and more black or white in the smaller picture. When it becomes larger, it's often the case that there's more apparent midtones because the value variation is spread out over a wider area. And because what we're seeing is different, if we're trying to draw it at the same size in the same time, we have to change how we do it. We have to change the way we're thinking, the sorts of marks we're going to use and how we put them on the paper. Because if I can see a lot of the detail, it's a very different process to if I really can't see any of that detail. And again, there's no point doubling the detail I can see if I double the sheet of paper I'm drawing on, or if I double the time I spend drawing. I want to change just one of these factors to force me to adapt my process. And then I get to discover how my process changes. I'm forced to change the sorts of marks I used or the sort of effect I'm trying to create. And then I can look at the result of that and start to think, what have I learned? How does drawing like this feel? How do I plan it? What are the possibilities of it? And remember, I'm not saying any one of these is better than the other. I'm not saying longer or shorter drawing time. I'm not saying larger or smaller drawings, and I'm not saying larger or smaller reference photos in themselves, that any one of those is superior in learning to draw. What I'm saying is, if I feel like I'm in a rut with how my drawings look and the process I use to get them, changing just one of these things but keeping the others the same will shake us up and provoke us to draw differently. And that opens up a whole new possible world of outcomes in our drawings. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you give one of these a go, or give all of them a go, but not at the same time. And just see whether that injects a little more energy, enthusiasm, interest into your drawing, as well as perhaps a change in how your drawings might look. And remember, it's not that you have to stay doing faster or longer drawings. You may well go back to the way you've always done them in terms of time and size, but you take the things that you've learnt within yourself and through your pen on the paper, and you're able to inject those into your preferred parameters for these three things and start to create the different results that you've been after. But in the end, whatever you draw, however much time you take, or large the drawing is, or what the size of the reference photo is, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.